Famous for his mesmerizing performance in The King and I, Yul Brynner rose to fame in the 1950s and has remained so for decades. His personal life lacked the same mysterious allure as his films. Despite his thriving career, Yul Brynner led a troubled life behind the scenes, filled with dark and difficult stories. Viewers and fans are forced to ponder what happened after the gruesome deaths of Yul Brynner and his wife. Want to know more? Join us as we review the horrific circumstances surrounding the deaths of Yul Brynner and his wife in this video. Let's review his life story, achievements, and notoriety before delving into the specifics. Yul Brynner's family legacy in Vladivostok. Yul Brynner's oldest son, Rock Brynner, shares the intriguing biography of his great-grandfather, Julius Brynner. Rock talks about his great-grandfather's life. When the Russian naval facility in Vladivostok was originally built, Julius was one of the first international business people to visit there. Julius, who was born in Switzerland, had previously headed a shipping firm in Yokohama, which is located in Japan. 1873 was the year when he relocated his company to Vladivostok. Julius and other foreign investors introduced European architects to the region, which resulted in the transformation of the tiny naval post into a contemporary metropolis that has a unique European character and continues to present itself today. In Vladivostok, Julius established himself as a prosperous businessman by establishing a sizable mining firm in the vicinity of the city. In addition to this, he traveled to Switzerland to purchase the materials necessary to construct a narrow-gauge railway that would convey ore from the mines to the port. The marriage between Julius and a Russian noblewoman resulted in the birth of 6 children. These children received their education in Moscow and St. Petersburg, therefore becoming members of the Russian intelligentsia. Eventually, Boris, one of these youngsters, became the owner of the mining exploitation company. In 1920, Yul Brynner, Boris's son, was born into the world. At the beginning of the 1920s, when the Bolsheviks took control of Vladivostok, they nationalized the mines owned by the Brynners. The fact that they did not have the knowledge of the previous owners made it difficult for them to handle them. In the course of a lecture tour in Vladivostok, Rock Brynner made the discovery that the conversations that took place between Boris Brynner and Vladimir Lenin, the leader of the Soviet Union, over the ownership of the mines created a significant precedent in international law. Legal academics continue to investigate this case even in the present day. When the Brynner family emigrated to China in 1928, they did so in spite of the anti-bourgeois feeling that prevailed at the time. Boris oversaw the mines for a short period of time from Harbin before the family relocated to Paris, where they were part of a huge community of Russian émigrés. Yul Brynner was a defiant individual who lived his life in Paris, where he participated in a gypsy orchestra by playing the guitar. While he was in Europe, he came into contact with Michael Chekhov, an émigré actor who Yul referred to as his only guide. They left Chekhov behind and followed him to the United States, where Yul Brynner enjoyed a prosperous career in the film industry. At some point in time, he relocated to Switzerland. There was just one of Yul's pictures, the Magnificent Seven, that was exhibited in the Soviet Union. Yul was never allowed to go to Vladivostok. However, Yul Brynner was certain that his family had not been forgotten in Vladivostok, despite the circumstances. To what extent did Yul's quest to celebrity begin? And what were the circumstances surrounding his last moments? Maintain your attention to discover out. The childhood of Yul Brynner. With the full name Yuli Borisovich Brynner, Yul Brynner was born on July 11, 1920, in the city of Vladivostok, which is located in Russia. Boris Yulievich Brynner, his father, was a mining engineer of Swiss origin, and Marusia Dmitrievna, his mother, was Russian. He was named after his father. Through his father's grandmother, Natalia Yosifovskaya, Yul inherited a mixture of Swiss, German, and Russian lineage, as well as some Buryat and Mongolian ancestry via his maternal grandmother. His name was chosen to honor his grandpa on his father's side, Julius Brynner. Over the course of his whole life, Yul maintained a high level of secrecy about his family tree, and often made humorous remarks about his genuine ancestry. At one point in time, he even said that he was a guy called Taiji Khan, who was born on the island of Sakhalin and was of mixed Swiss and Japanese descent. A popular quote attributed to him is, "People don't know my real self, and they're not going to find out." He placed a high importance on his privacy. When he made a passing reference to his Mongolian background, he said, "I'm just a good little Mongol boy, clean and neat." This was the closest he got to exposing his ethnicity. Jetta Lee Thompson, a friend of Yul's, said that neither his upbringing nor his parents were topics that he sometimes discussed. She made the observation that we were aware of the fact that there was something in the past that had caused him pain. However, there was this guy who was the king, who ruled everyone he came into touch with, and yet there were occasions when I would find him sitting with tears in his eyes, profoundly contemplating something. I was aware that Yul, despite all of his bravado, was still a very real guy who had been injured and had, for the most part, been able to disguise those scars. Prior to the publishing of biographies written by Yul Brynner, Yul Brynner's son, the general public did not have the opportunity to obtain a genuine picture of his early life. Rock described in Yul, Empire and Odyssey, and The Man Who Would Be King. How his father had an affair with a lady called Katya Kornikova in 1923 when Yul was just 3 years old. Rock's account was recounted in all 3 of these works. There is a good chance that this occurrence had a role in Yul's secretive personality. Marussia brought Yul and his sister Vera to Harbin, China, where they attended a YMCA school after her husband departed. Marussia's husband had abandoned the family. According to some stories, Marussia relocated the family to Paris, France, in 1934, anticipating tensions between Japan and China. This was done in order to escape the approaching confrontation between Japan and China. At the renowned Lycée Monceau, which is located in Paris, Yul was enrolled. He was more attracted to the performing arts than he was to academic subjects, which he did not find very interesting. Rather than continuing his education, he chose to pursue a career as a trapeze performer in the renowned Cirque d'Yves. Yul's enthusiasm for folk music and gypsy culture has grown significantly throughout the course of this period of time. His agent, Guy Melvin, said in the documentary Yul Brynner, The Man Who Would Be King, that his gypsy heritage, which he was very proud of, provided him with an extraordinary feeling of belonging no matter where he was. When he was in the United States, he was a citizen of the USA. During the time that he was in France, he was French. Yul's career as a trapeze performer came to an abrupt end when he had a back injury. Following this, he chose to pursue a career as a guitarist, concentrating on performing gypsy music at a number of Russian nightclubs located in Paris. In 1938, when Marussia was given a diagnosis of leukemia, the family did a quick relocation back to Harbin, which is located in China. There was a lot of movement and change in Yul Brynner's early childhood, which was impacted by his broad ancestry as well as the political changes that were occurring during his period. The guy who would eventually become a great actor was a tenacious and complex individual, and these experiences helped form him despite the difficulties he faced in his early years. Yul Brynner's journey to stardom. Yul Brynner and his mother left their country and arrived in New York City on October 25, 1940. His sister Vera greeted them. She had moved there earlier and sang on Broadway as a vocalist. Working for the United States Office of War Information as a French-language radio broadcaster, Yul aired to German-occupied France during World War II. He was meanwhile improving his acting under the direction of the adaptable Russian-American actor Michael Chekhov, playing Fabian in Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. Yul made his Broadway debut in December 1941. Following his debut, Yul performed with Mary Martin in the Broadway drama Lute Song and the television series Mr. Jones and His Neighbors. Lute Song only received little appreciation, but his connection with Mary Martin finally gave him a turning point in his career. Yul wed actress Virginia Gilmore in 1944 and began working at CBS as a film and television director. The children's puppet program, Life with Snarky Parker, which ran 8 months until cancellation in 1950, was his first directing job. Notwithstanding this setback, Yul proved himself to be a successful director in films such as Studio One in Hollywood, Danger, and Omnibus. Mary Martin pushed Yul to go for the King of Siam part in the new Rogers musical The King and I in 1950. Though first reluctant to go back on stage, Yul was drawn in by the role and chose to be part of the first Broadway show in 1951. He shaved his head to really embrace the role, and this evolved to be a trademark feature of his character. 2 Tony Awards went to Yul Brynner for his amazing performance as King Mongkut. Having performed 4,025 times during his career, he came to be associated with the part. His performance in the 1956 film adaptation of The King and I earned him the Best Actor Academy Award. Yul appeared in 2 additional big box office blockbusters the same year, The 10 Commandments, where he represented Ramesses II and Anastasia, in which he played General Bunin. Later on, The 10 Commandments turned into among the most financially successful movies ever produced. After 3 outstanding performances, Yul Brynner became well-known all over and solidified his reputation as among Hollywood's best performers. He was honored on the Hollywood Walk of Fame on February 8, 1960. Yul starred in more than 40 films and enjoyed success in Hollywood throughout the following 2 decades. Among his prominent performances were those in Solomon and Sheba, The Magnificent Seven, Taurus Bulba, and Kings of the Sun. Yul was often cast in powerful major roles as king, an Egyptian pharaoh, and a Western gunslinger based on his exotic appeal and tough appearance. Was Yul an actor alone, or did he pursue other interests? Let's learn about some more fascinating and profitable endeavors he started throughout his heyday as a great genius. Yul Brynner's life beyond acting. Yul Brynner had a distinguished career as an actor and director in addition to being a gifted photographer, writer, and musician. As a special consultant on refugees for the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, he had a love for documenting moments with his camera and shot a ton of pictures of his friends, family, and the refugees he met. Upon seeing his daughter's passion for photography at the age of 15, her father gifted her a camera. Even though they had parted ways when she was 6 years old, they developed a unique bond via photography. They spoke about great photographers like Cartier-Bresson and Curtis for hours on end, and he always gave her very insightful criticism. His daughter, Victoria Brynner, was struck by his thorough documentation of the movie The 10 Commandments, which included color slides and notes on several production locations when she discovered boxes of his painstakingly preserved photos after his passing. His work included pictures of the technical team, the director, and the performers, many of which were tagged with Yul Brynner's photos. Victoria discovered her father was more than just an actor after spending days going through these pictures. He was a skilled photographer as well. The creative challenges of directing were very rewarding to him. His success with The King and I prevented him from pursuing his dream of becoming a director again. So instead of keeping a journal, he used his camera to capture his life and the people in it. His endeavor to capture the spirit was evident in his delicate and exquisite portraits. Victoria collected his images, feeling more connected to him and sharing his legacy even if he never published his work. She understood that Yul had given her his vision as well as his eyes. His enthusiasm for photography demonstrated his perceptive and empathetic personality. Later, his daughter Victoria Brynner assembled his whole life's worth of images into a book called Yul Brynner, Photographer, which highlighted his wide range of photography endeavors and sharp eye. Brynner was a writer of 2 important works. His 1960 book Bring Forth the Children, A Journey to the Forgotten People of Europe and the Middle East, is a reflection of his experiences working with displaced people and his humanitarian endeavors. Brynner's dedication to drawing attention to the situation of refugees is evident in the book, which offers a moving look at their life and the difficulties they encountered. A peek into his culinary tastes was provided by his second book, the Yul Brynner Cookbook, Food Fit for the King and You. Published in 1983, this cookbook showcased Brynner's appreciation of fine cuisine and his culinary skills, with dishes that he frequently made and liked. Brynner was also an accomplished guitarist. He had always loved to play the guitar and would often include music into both his public appearances and private life. His ability to play music gave his creative endeavors a new perspective and showed his adaptability and originality. Yul Brynner's philanthropy and net worth. Yul Brynner was committed to helping issues that were related to refugees. A deeper dedication was prompted by his early interest in collecting United Nations refugee stamps, which ultimately led to his serving as a special advisor on refugees for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, in order to bring attention to the challenges faced by migrants in Asia and the Middle East. Brynner made advantage of his popularity and took his obligation extremely seriously. His gypsy origin was often recognized by his acquaintances as the source of his daring attitude, despite the fact that he dealt with major threats associated with local military patrols and refugee camps. As part of his efforts to raise awareness about refugee concerns, Brynner also produced 2 films himself. At the time of his passing in 1985, he had a net worth of $10 million, which, after taking into account the effects of inflation, accounts for around $30 million now. For his legendary performance as the King of Siam in the Broadway musical The King and I, which was performed in 1951, and the film version of the musical, which was released in 1956, Brynner is most known. 2 Tony Awards and an Academy Award were bestowed to him as a result of his performance in these performances. He performed the part on stage more than 40,600 times, which is an impressive number. A total of over 40 acting credits have been acquired by Yul Brynner during the course of his career. Yul Brynner's marriages. In the beginning, Virginia Gilmore was known by the name Sherman Virginia Poole. She was born in El Monte, California, and she had a successful acting career that lasted for more than 30 years. San Francisco was where she began her career as an actress before she relocated to Hollywood in 1939. In spite of the difficulties she encountered at first, she was determined enough to face producer Samuel Goldwyn, which resulted in her being offered a screen test. In her early career in Hollywood, she appeared in films such as Winter Carnival, Tall, Dark, and Handsome, The Loves of Edgar Allan Poe, and The Pride of the Yankees. Her most notable appearances, on the other hand, were in the 1941 film Western Union, in which she appeared with Randolph Scott and Swamp Water, which was directed by Jean Renoir and also had participation from Walter Huston and Walter Brennan. After moving back to New York, Gilmore was able to achieve success in the theater by playing parts in the plays Those Endearing Young Charms, 1943, and Dear Ruth, 1944. Between the years 1966 and 1968, she was also a theatrical instructor at Yale University. Among the things that will be remembered about Gilmore are her contributions to the theater and cinema, as well as the considerable influence she had on both her students and her colleagues. A gripping narrative from the annals of Hollywood history. The love story between Yul Brynner and Virginia Gilmore combines elements of romance, professional partnership, and personal struggles. When Virginia first met Yul Brynner in 1942, she was already a well-known figure in Hollywood. Brynner had only just arrived in the United States a few months earlier. To make ends meet at the time, Brynner had a limited command of the English language and supported himself by doing a variety of occupations, including waiting tables, parking cars, and playing gypsy songs in clubs. Their wedding took place on September 6, 1944. And it was a momentous occasion for the couple, who were both prominent figures in the entertainment world. The child that Brynner and Gilmore had together was a boy named Yul Rock Brynner II. On the other hand, their partnership was not devoid of challenges from the beginning. The demands of Hollywood and the theatrical world kept him on the road on a regular basis, which added stress to their marriage with each passing day. While this was going on, Gilmore's career started to go in a new direction. In order to devote more time to her family, she eventually made the decision to stop performing. Despite all of these obstacles, Brynner and Gilmore continued to be dedicated to one another for a considerable amount of time. They were able to handle the highs and lows of living in the public light while still supporting one another's professional endeavors. The ups and downs of celebrity, the strain of extended separations, and the challenge of juggling personal and professional aspirations were all things that their partnership was able to endure. In 1960, after having been married for 16 years, the pair ultimately decided to divorce, and the divorce was formalized in 1967. In spite of the fact that their official partnership came to an end, they continued to appreciate one another and had a connection via their kid. As she continued to work in the entertainment business on a sporadic basis, Virginia Gilmore continued to make appearances on television as well as in theater shows. Outside of the performing world, she also followed her own personal development and interests. It was well known that she had a successful career in both the film industry and the stage. Yul Brynner went through 3 additional marriages after his initial marriage to the actress Virginia Gilmore. Each of these marriages highlighted another aspect of his life, including his personal and public life. Since 1960 to 1967, he was married to Doris Kleiner, a socialite from Chile. This was his second marriage. Victoria Brynner was the name of the child that they had together. Stardust Visions and Stardust Celebrity, a well-known photography production firm in Los Angeles, were both founded by Victoria, who went on to become a wealthy entrepreneur. Jacqueline de Croizet, a French socialite and philanthropist, became Brynner's third wife in 1971. This marriage marked the beginning of his third marriage. Mia and Melody Brynner were adopted throughout the course of their relationship, which lasted until 1981 and involved the adoption of 2 children. The daughters were raised in a household that was affected by their father's celebrity in Hollywood and their mother's cultural heritage in France. This resulted in a family that harmoniously combined French refinement with Hollywood glitter. At a later point in his life, in 1983, Brynner tied the knot with Kathy Lee. Unfortunately, their time together was cut short since Brynner's fight against lung cancer ended in 1985. Since of this, their time together was cut short. Despite the fact that they were only married for a short time, Kathy Lee remained a loyal companion, providing him with support throughout his sickness till the very end. For example, Brynner once said that females had an unfair edge over men. This demonstrates that she had a distinct viewpoint on women. They are able to achieve what they want by being stupid if they are unable to get it by using their intelligence. In addition, he was the godfather of Charlotte Gainsbourg, a French actress, and he was the father of a daughter named Lark Brynner, who was born to him and Frances Martin, a German actress. In her own way, one of his daughters, Victoria Brynner, has established a prosperous professional opportunity for herself. Stardust Visions and Stardust Celebrity, a photography production firm based in Los Angeles, were both founded by her in the year 1992. The fact that the iconic actress Audrey Hepburn was her godmother was another one of the significant connections that she had in her life. The question is, what were the conditions that led to the terrible conclusion of Yul Brynner, as well as the endings of his wives? Maintain your attention to discover out. The tragic death of Yul Brynner. Yul Brynner's life took a terrible turn owing to his long-term smoking habit, which started when he was 12 years old and lasted until 1971 when he stopped. In 1983, he discovered a tumor in his neck and sought medical assistance only hours before his 4,000th performance of The King and I. The news was awful. Despite having a clean throat, he was diagnosed with incurable lung cancer and given just 3 months to live. Brynner took time off for treatment, but the therapy had an impact on his ability to sing and talk in certain performances. In a heartfelt gesture, his son, Rock Brynner, would sometimes dub his voice from the director's perspective. During one intermission, Yul embraced his son and said, despite his illness, Brynner decided to continue working, resuming the tour of The King and I. On June 30, 1985, he gave his 4,025th and last performance as King Mongkut, capping off his storied career. Acting offered him something to concentrate on and brought comfort after his diagnosis. He survived for 2 years after being diagnosed, despite knowing that smoking had caused his disease. During this time, He went on Good Morning America and spoke candidly about the consequences of smoking. Yul Brynner died from lung cancer on October 10, 1985. He was cremated and buried in the Abbey of Saint-Michel-de-Bois-Aubry in France. Shortly after his death, he taped an emotional public service message against smoking, which broadcast on major television networks in the United States and across the world. In the ad, he truly implored viewers, "Now that I'm gone, don't smoke. And whatever you do, please don't smoke. If I could stop smoking, we wouldn't be talking about cancer. I'm certain of it." Yul Brynner's remembrance by his daughter, Victoria. In 1985, at the age of 22, Victoria Brynner's father, Yul Brynner, died away. The first great sorrow she had to face was his death. He had always stood tall as her champion and guardian. Heroes, in her view, lived on. At that moment, nothing he could have given her, monetary or otherwise, could have soothed the anguish of his loss. As time passed and memories of him flooded her mind, she started to question their bond and the impact he had on her. As she continued to think about him, she came to the realization that his powerful visual sense was fundamental to his personality. She was able to put this feeling into practice throughout her career as a photographer, editor, and, finally, photographic producer. Her father's photography had a profound impact on her formative years, and she now realizes that this expressive and imaginative vocabulary took time to form. Her mother and father's photographic circle included Ernst Haas, Inga Morath, and John Bryson, all of whom were personal friends of her father's, and who often dropped by their house and worked on his film sets. Her mother painstakingly compiled a number of stunning picture albums showcasing his work over the years. One of Victoria's favorite things to do when she was a kid was to get those big black albums from the closet and go through each one. Through these visual recollections, she gained an education in numerous ways. Over time, Victoria's expressive and imaginative vocabulary evolved, and she has come to understand that her father's photography had a profound impact on the most vivid recollections she had as a youngster. Along with her mother and their mutual acquaintances, he passionately shared this interest. Thus, were his spouses unharmed by the disaster? Whose tales were they? We'll have to see. The untimely demise of Yul Brynner's spouses. Gilmore died in her Santa Barbara, California, home on March 28, 1986, from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. Her age was 66. The Neptune Society cremated her when she passed away and dispersed her ashes at sea. Dietrich, his second wife, passed away at the age of 90 from renal disease at her Parisian residence on May 6, 1992, at Paris's Roman Catholic Church of La Madeleine. Her burial was held on May 14, 1992. Thousands more stood outside, while some 100 people, including ambassadors from other nations, were inside for the ceremony. Placing her closed coffin under the altar, French President François Mitterrand presented a small bouquet of white wildflowers and roses, and the coffin was covered with the French flag. By the side of the casket were laid out 3 medals, one of which was the American Medal of Freedom and the other the French Légion d'honneur. At the funeral, the priest spoke of Dietrich as an artist who fought valiantly against Nazism, and as someone who wanted to be remembered in the same way as a soldier. She happened to be the featured actress on that year's Cannes Film Festival poster, which was plastered all over Paris. A tribute to Yul Brynner, at Yul Brynner Park, in Vladivostok, Russia, on Ilyutskaya St. No. 50. A monument of Yul Brynner was erected on September 28, 2012. The statue stands 4 meters tall and is situated in front of the home where he was born. A granite monolith was transported to Vladivostok from China and sculpted by a local artist named Alexei Boki. Pictured above is Brynner, in his legendary turn as Siam's monarch Mongkut from The King and I. Vladivostok, the city that provided the park's land, also paid for all of the project's expenses. Present at the unveiling event were hundreds of local people, as well as Vladivostok Mayor Igor Pushkaryov, U.S., Consul General Sylvia Curran, and Rock, Brynner's son. on top of the park. The suburban Vladivostok Brynner family villa now houses the Yul Brynner Museum. In 1956, Yul Brynner made an American impression on the concrete pavement outside of Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, California, by leaving his handprints and footprints. A star was bestowed to him at 6162 Hollywood Boulevard on the Hollywood Walk of Fame 4 years after, in 1960. In 2022, a podcast dedicated to Yul Kid's filmography was released. Here's looking at Yul Kid. The show included special guests such as Ron Howard. In his final will and testament, Brynner stated his desire to be laid to rest in France, the country where he spent many years as a student, worker, and resident, at the Abbey Royale Saint-Michel-du-Bois-Aubry, where he was put to rest. There is a monument dedicated to him, saying, "In our family, Yul is not just a name, it is a title." Yul Brynner's son made it plain early on that the family name will be carried on. He hoped that by giving his baby the name Rock, after the boxer Rocky Graziano, he would give him the fortitude to succeed in New York. From New York to Chicago to Los Angeles to Switzerland, Rock's upbringing was marked by constant movement. It was there that he enrolled at the International School of Geneva. He was born into a glamorous family. His godfather was the French poet Jean Cocteau, and he was friends with Liza Minnelli and Elizabeth Taylor from infancy. Rock was a brilliant student, even though he came from a wealthy family. A Ph.D. in American history was his in 1993 after he had attended Yale, Trinity College at Dublin, and Columbia University. After that, he spent more than 10 years as an instructor at Marist College in New York's Poughkeepsie. In 1970, Rock adapted Jean Cocteau's biography Opium into a Broadway play and toured Europe as a mime, albeit he battled with drugs and alcohol at this time. His various experiences include these. The celebrity world captivated Rock as well. After Muhammad Ali lost the heavyweight title because of his anti-war stance, he became a member of Ali's entourage and accompanied Ali on his travels. Rock was Ali's bodyguard, and despite their disputes, Ali loved calling him that. Rock acted as Ali's go-between with the press and used his Dublin connections to set up a major bout between Blue Lewis and Ali in 1972. After coming back to the United States, Rock became friendly with the band's Robbie Robertson, who helped put up the 1978 film The Last Waltz. Rock oversaw the 1984 expansion of the Hard Rock Cafe in Manhattan, which he had invested in the early 1970s, near Danbury, Connecticut. He and his father launched an aircraft rental business after a year. In 1989, he published a biography of his father called Yul, the Man Who Would Be King, and he returned to academics in the mid-1980s. He earned his Ph.D. from Columbia University. Victoria, Mia, Melody, and Lark Brynner are his sisters. He died age 76 from multiple myeloma complications. Is Yul Brynner's legacy one that you believe continues today? Post a comment and tell us what you think. For tuning in to this video, I am grateful. We hope that it piqued your curiosity. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. If you want to see the latest celebrity news, just click the video that appears on your screen. We will meet there.